All right.
All right.
And we are live. Welcome to the Hedonistic Way at Midday show. I am Renee Main, and I am beyond excited to share this epic human with you. She is a game changer. She has created a movement and is creating social change in a world that has been skin deep for eons. She is the pioneer of body positivity and a true body image warrior. She is a true visionary and a futurist. She has the wheels spinning before we even know it's a thing. She is redefining beauty and has been for nearly 2 decades. She has been the backbone of making it mainstream. Her devotion for body positivity and mental health has caught the eye of several key players around the globe. She is on a mission to change the way we think about beauty and body image, and she will stop at absolutely nothing for that to happen. She is highly successful. She is an all-round epic human. She is the CEO of Bella Management and author of Body Image Warrior. I welcome you to the show, Chelsea. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That's like the best intro anyone's ever given me. That was epic. I want to use that on everything. I'm going to use that on all my pages now.
Well, you are more than welcome, because it really
Thank
is.
you.
I love doing it, and it's just my gift to I really don't like the generic, kind of
yeah
that, if they're on heaps of podcasts and they're hearing the exact same thing. So I really love to just pull out the wisdom and just, what I feel,
I think that's amazing too, because it shows that you're actually interested in the people that you're speaking to. A lot of times I do interviews or podcasts, and I know for sure after about 3 questions, they don't know who I am. They've never read my book. They've got no idea. They've just been told to interview me. And, and it's always a bit deflating, because you're like, oh, I'm taking my time out of my day for this, and you don't even know anything about me. It's a little bit, you could just read something. There's, little bit of information before I come on the show.
Just a little bit.
Or before you call me.
Yeah, exactly. And just like there was a little thread that you just said there, and that's something that, when I was tapping into who you are as a person, I really got the essence of, for me, that's the power of the power of the bark.
Really? Does everyone want to come for a little walk? Yeah, we'll go get her, because she's a nightmare. We're unpacking boxes today. Billy, hey.
Beautiful.
So I'm in my office in Sydney.
That's all right. And this
it's coming upstairs. That's her grandpa. Crazy. She'll stop now. I thought it was a courier and she wouldn't have stopped, but she'll stop now.
Beautiful.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. That is not a problem. And it's funny. It's kind of on cue, really, is because what I was going to say was, like, the thread that I got from you is that I see you, and the importance of people seeing each other. And I feel like that's really the essence of behind your body image movement, and why you're such a warrior, and everything that you're creating, this legacy that you're creating, is really about seeing each other for who they are.
Yes, yeah. And I write about that in the book, that, it wouldn't it be so interesting to just meet each other as just orbs of light, or just little particles of our beings, rather than the shells that we show up in, that are good, that we're born into, and we have no control over how they're shaped or what color hair they're going to have or any of those things. And I think for a lot of us, we all feel like our personality is not seen because of the bodysuit that we're in. And that's really, that can be really difficult for a lot of people, is that I don't feel the way I look, and I think that's why we have so many problems with body dysmorphia and things like that. But it's more that it's not that you don't feel like what you look like. It's more that you're told that to feel a certain way, you're supposed to look a certain way. So it's about accepting all of yourself in order to, you know, feel fully integrated, and not listening to other people's opinion of, well, interesting people look quirky and look, well, you know, some do, but some don't. Some walk around in activewear all day like me. So, you know, that doesn't make me any less of a deep thinker or anything like that, just because I don't have, you know, I don't know, black and pink hair and, you know, or whatever it is. It's just funny, the preconceived ideas that people have based on your outward appearance. And that's, I guess, what I've been trying to shatter for the last 20 years is don't treat people that way. Don't pigeonhole people that way. I bloody hate it when people put me in a box. I can't stand it. I almost do the complete opposite to what people expect me to do. Once I realize that's what they've done, I need to blow that up. You know, I need to blow up that whole concept for them. I just can't do it. I'm just like, don't just put me in that little, I'm not that, I'm a much bigger being than that, you know, and I won't be defined by anybody else's rules. And so, yeah, and I sort of want to just, I guess, kick that door in so that everyone can follow me out and, you know, get out of it. So that's I guess that's sort of, I've always been like that though. My mum said I just came out like that, just questioning everything. Well, why? Well, who made up that rule? Well, who said that? Well, what makes them the expert? You know, so right from a little girl. Yeah.
And they're such valid questions, that inquiry, you know, and that's, we have these beliefs that are just, that we never question, that's just passed down to us and passed down to us.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, I want to ask you so many things, but you've gone about doing this in a very mainstream arena. So I want to ask you about, like, just how did you do this? Like, how did you know, there's so many things that I want to ask. Like, how did you have the perseverance to do that? Because I'm sure that you come up against so many different blocks and so many different walls, both internally and externally. So I want to ask you about just how you managed to do that in the mainstream arena.
Well, I think because I was working in the so-called mainstream arena, and I saw how broken it was, and how much just absolute bullshit goes on in order to create, you know, images that no one can live up to. Nobody can live up to them without, you know, extraordinary mental and physical effort, or damage, you know, or both. So I just couldn't. I guess for me as a human being, I just felt that if I felt like that, if I felt that things were inaccurate, I think that's my big thing. I have a real sense of justice and accuracy and truth. And it was so incongruent with me working in behind the business and seeing what rolled out. It was so false. And I just felt like if I felt like that, there must be at least 100 other people like me, at least 1,000 other people like me. So I had to try for those people who felt the same way I did. And it was amazing to me, actually, over the years. I mean, in the beginning, it was very difficult because it was such a small market, and it's so uncool to just be yourself, right? It's the most uncool thing ever. It was, but it, you know, 20 years ago, if you didn't have your shoulder pads and your jacket and your lipstick and your high heels, and if you didn't conform, people just didn't know what to do with you. And it was very unpopular to be your real authentic self. That was the most unpopular, uncool thing you could be. And so for many years, I was on my own in that belief that we should be able to live in our own skins fully and fully appreciate every single part of ourselves for its uniqueness and the beauty in that uniqueness. And so I think that's what propelled me, that, and friends who had struggled with eating disorders and become very sick, not just from the eating disorders, but from the drugs and alcohol and everything else it took to maintain an eating disorder, or to maintain, you know, some semblance of life. When you're starving yourself, you need something to pick yourself up. So, you know, I saw all these cycles of abuse, and so I knew it couldn't just be me, and I knew it couldn't just be my little circle of friends. There had to be more people who were suffering from this. And how did I do something about it? And it was really just that combination of I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. It didn't feel right. It wasn't honest. It wasn't truthful. It was making people sick. It was making people really, really sick emotionally and physically, to try to live up to this insane standards of so-called beauty, because I don't think everyone looking the same is that beautiful, to be honest. I find it quite boring. So, you know, there has to be, like, if you're thinking that way, someone else is too. So if they don't have the strength or the courage right now to stand up for themselves, stand up for them like you would for your own sisters or your own children or your own family, you know. Some people are really good at standing up front and taking the blows, and I'm really good at that. And I'm strong enough to hook people up on my shoulders and push them over the wall. I'm quite happy to do that. So I'm trying to use the gifts I have in service of others who might not be as tough that way as I am, but they're excellent at screaming at people from the roof. So beautiful. If I can get them to the roof, that's great, you know. So that's kind of how I think about it. I've got a very utilitarian view of what I do. You know, push everybody up over the wall, get them all up onto the roof, get them all yelling. It's good. It's great. That's perfect.
Absolutely. I just really honor that, you know, in you, because it's all inclusive, right? Like, it's just okay. Like it's, you know, I feel like you're removing that hierarchy and just going, you know what, like, everyone's welcome, and let's just all speak. We all have a place.
Everyone has a place. Absolutely.
And so I want to ask you, because in that you were in the industry, and and you're brought up very much in the industry as well. So that was a fun fact when I was doing your research. I didn't know that. That was interesting. So you were brought up in the industry, and then you're working in the industry. Now, it's something that you said that, you know, it's one thing to, it doesn't feel aligned, it doesn't feel right, but yet that courage to go, you know, because it would have been really easy to just continue to do the thing, right? And to turn a blind eye, because
of course it would. I had a great job. I was one of the, you know, was an agent for one of the top agencies in Sydney. I represented some of the top photographers in Australia. We were shooting all the covers of Vogue, and I was invited to all the great parties and all that, like everything that you think you want from life as a 20-something-year-old. I had all of that, but it was boring and untruthful and unhealthy and sad, you know, watching all of these people try to fit into a mold to impress each other and who could best fit. I mean, it's just depressing. So I had to do it for my own heart as well. You know, I couldn't live like that, being so out of balance with myself. I just couldn't do it. And I still can't do it. I have real trouble trying to pretend I'm something that I'm not. Or, you know, I was talking with a friend of mine, Andy, recently about how when the business sort of first became popular and it really started to take off, I was sort of pushed into this position of, well, now you have to be the businesswoman with the hair and the this and the that. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, and then I couldn't do it. A couple of years, I was like, oh, fuck this, I'm out. I can't, you know, it's just not me. I'm in my runners today. I've got stretchy jeans on. I put some lippy on for you, especially. And but that's me most days. And sometimes I like getting dressed up and whatever, but I don't like to be forced into things. You know, I feel, and I don't like to walk around feeling like I'm not dressed like me, like I'm in a costume of some sort. You know, I really hate that. What do women wear? Well, they wear whatever the frick they feel comfortable wearing, in my opinion. So that's what I do now. I just don't let anybody push me into any roles that I don't want to take. But it wasn't easy, because, you know, you think it's that programming that you were talking about earlier. You programmed and you don't even realize. And sometimes you go down that path, like I did with the whole businesswoman CEO, crazy time stuff and my high heels and stuff. And I was like, where did that even come from? And why do I believe this? And who set this up? Some guy decided that I'm supposed to wear a dress and heels and dye
He doesn't have to wear heels all day.
Yeah, some dude decided that. No woman I know would ever, pressure somebody else another woman to do. So, that's stupid. So it's constantly dismantling your own core beliefs, isn't it? As you find them. Like, hang on, no, that's not mine. That doesn't belong to me. And you have to just keep picking them out all the time. And sometimes you don't even know they're in there until you're confronted with that particular situation. And then this whole belief system comes up. And, you just got to I think the biggest thing for me was learning cognitive behavioral therapy and being able to implement that into my life and to really learn where those thoughts come from. So whenever I get that, that feeling, sometimes you feel really anxious, or sometimes you get that shame feeling or that guilt feeling. Whenever any of that kind of washes over me, whatever it is, I always dismantle it now. I don't just feel it and go, I go, hang on. Where did that come from, and why, and what is that, and who put it in there, and how did it get in my brain, and do I actually believe it? Is it true? And then I can pull it all apart and calm down. And that has been the biggest gift for me of everything I've learned in my life. I think that, and I've done a lot of different things in my life, but I think cognitive behavioral therapy has been the most brilliant tool.
Yeah.
So just for staying peaceful and true to yourself and recognizing what's yours.
Yeah, and I think that's a piece that when you speak about, it's a piece that I think needs to be taught in schools.
It absolutely does.
Like, learn to be the observer and the witness to your thoughts and to those belief systems. And as you said in the beginning, is question them. Like, why I don't understand why we don't question them more.
Well, because we're taught to not question them, because that's how you're supposed to feel. That's how the rest of society feels. Our film, our television, all sort of popular culture tells you that's how you're supposed to feel, and that's how supposedly everybody else feels. And so it's really clever at making you feel like you're wrong. You're the wrong one, right?
And the only one, right?
The only wrong one. And that, I think, is the best thing about social media that has come from the digital age, the internet, is that it has connected so many like-minded people together from all over the world. I mean, it's just really incredible, isn't it? So you really can find your tribe and get online and just Google anything that you're thinking about, and you will find so many people who think the same way that you do or believe along the same lines. So that has been a real gift, I think. But, I mean, that can be used for good and for ill, as we've seen. But but you've got to take the good with the bad. No one ever promised anybody an easy life, and anyone who thinks that they deserve it because they're touched by whatever being and they're the only ones that deserve to have a completely trouble-free life, that's kind of delusional. Life's not like that. So but the internet, I don't know, seems to find those people, but that's all right. Some of those theories are really interesting.
and that's it. I wrote a post the other day, saying that, there's so much, because was it last year, I think I wrote an equality plan in my company, and then doing that, I was like, okay, like, what if I went one step further, and what if I started to like decolonize my business and to be all inclusive and everything else, and just doing that. And I realized, because I'm like, do I need an anti-racism plan and anti this? And I went, why is it like, for me, anti is like, it's got like a really negative undertone.
I agree. Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what, most of these people who we would classify as anti and potentially question their level of crazy actually are pro-humanity, pro-love, all of these beautiful things. Like they're warriors, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I think that is, that's really interesting. I wanna ask you about your journey with coming into this, like becoming that warrior. And I know that, so you were born always questioning, and and that warrior archetype is really innate and alive in you. So you have this fight and this drive. I But you also care deeply, as we know about body image, but also mental health. Tell me
Mm.
why these topics are so alive in you.
I think because they're the topics that I'm most confronted with and have been the most confronted with throughout my life. So they're the things that I saw right from my earliest memories in my daily life. There are issues that my own family and friends had. So they were right in my face all the time. And as I guess because of the work I've chosen,
Mm.
I am still, that is still my daily experience. And
Yeah.
so, and I have a lot of people who ask me for help or advice or guidance
Yeah.
along those types of lines. So I love seeing how far we've come as women, and our, sort of the movements and the amazing battles that we've overcome and are overcoming daily together. I think that's incredible. But I really do worry about our men getting left behind, because I feel like women have been able to move forward in such leaps and bounds emotionally over the last couple of decades, but men are kind of stuck still, and we've got to find a way for them to get them to open up and to get them to get more in touch with their emotional and physical health and those things. We are so lucky as women, we're much better at speaking about feelings. And so, that's one thing that's really, sort of preoccupying my thoughts at the moment, is how do we encourage men to join us in this, join us up here in this free space where you can have emotions and feelings and thoughts that are your own and not based on what you should be doing for your gender. I think this is a real worry. It really worries me because of the suicide rates, and it's really terrifying. Unfortunately, I've had several male friends and colleagues around me not survive over the last few years. So, and way more men than women.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we have this amazing, we can ring a girlfriend or talk to somebody online, and just be really honest and don't feel judged in the right space. But there's still a real lack of spaces for men to do that. So this is something I'm really worried about at the moment, and trying to figure out a way to help. So yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, in this, women rising. And that's, we hear a lot about this, this feminist movement, which is absolutely beautiful and
It is.
everything
Yeah.
else. And but you're right. It's, in terms of, if we talk about it as like the patriarch, so to speak, is that women were jibbed, but so were men,
Yes. And a
because
lot
they
of
got
men
robbed of
behave the
so
way they
much.
do because they don't know any different. They don't have a skill set for anything different. They don't have an example of anything different. So they're just following what their dads did and their grandpas did because they don't know how else to be.
Yeah.
So how do we help them? How do we show them that it's okay? And how do we let them know it's okay to be human? You're allowed to get upset. And I remember watching a documentary about 2 years ago called The Red Pill. I don't know if you ever saw that.
No.
I had to watch it twice
Yeah.
because the first time, because I'm such a feminist, the
Yeah.
first time I watched it, I was finding it really hard not to fly into a blind rage every 5 minutes. I was like, oh, but women this and but women that. And, it was really hard for me to sit. So I had to sit and watch it again and just try to remove myself from it, my emotion from it. And look, still, still it's a very uncomfortable documentary to watch, but there were some really big takeaways for me in that, just things I hadn't ever thought of before and that made so much sense. Like, that the girls' school that was all those beautiful young girls in Africa were murdered, and the whole world went into an absolute uproar for those little girls. But the same thing had happened to little boys the year before, and the media didn't pick it up at all.
Yeah.
Because they're boys. It's crazy. And things like women and children first. I've never really looked at that. But it made me really, like, I'm tougher than most blokes I know. You know, if you're going to leave someone on a ship to help, you know, it's probably going to be me. You want to, you know, it's just so weird. Those gender roles are really outdated, and unfortunately we need to, the whole of society needs to catch up with that, and men are a part of society, believe it or not.
Exactly, that's
so
right. And a very significant part.
Absolutely, yeah. I was being a bit cheeky then, but that's the whole, it is like it's a together rising thing, right? So we need each other. That's what humanity is. It's men and women together. And one can't really truly succeed without the other. We need, you know, we need all genders to be on board with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, and I talk a bit about this in my internship, one of the courses that I teach, because you know, in this, like, I was raised by a single mum, and you know, and she was fierce, and she comes from a strong lineage of fierce women. And so for me, and they've all got this real, like, I have to do it on my own. Like, you know, I know mum, when she left dad, you know, she wanted to replace everything, and it was like, I bought everything, and you know, and it was this real sense of fierce independence. And I was like, I want to be just like you. You know? And then, but then she forgot how to open herself to love.
Yes.
You know,
and I was going to say the same thing happened to me. I did exactly the same thing. And then you spend so much time teaching yourself how to not soften, and how to wear this suit of armor every day, and I'm okay, and I don't need anybody, and that you do end up distancing yourself from other people, but also from yourself. You don't know how to connect up anymore. I remember I think when I went into the cognitive behavioural theory, I hadn't cried tears since I was a teenager, and I was 40, you know, and because tears were weakness. You can't show weakness. So, you know, especially as a woman in business, I can't show any weakness. And so it's like I just cut that off from myself. Like, okay, I can't feel that. And I'm not allowed to be emotional because that's girly, right? Or that's, of course you're crying because you're female. So I just sliced that whole part out, or shelved it for a while, for a long time. And just being able to cry again was the weirdest feeling. And get angry, get emotional at all about anything was so weird. Teaching myself not to stop myself. It was, you know, because the minute I started to feel anything, I would close it down, and just allowing myself to go right through that process and feel upset or tear up and cry about something. It took years for me to dismantle all of that. And, you know, it's, so I totally understand your mum in that scenario, because I absolutely did that. And even, last weekend I watched something, I can't remember what I was watching on TV, and I started to get teary, and then I started to stop myself from tearing up. And I said, what are you doing? You're sitting on your own. If you want to cry, just cry. So I'm still learning, you know, that's okay.
And that's because that's what we do, right? Like, it's like, oh, you're crying, we can't cry. Wipe away your tears, because crying is ugly, and we can't be ugly, you know. So it's just buried so far down within us. I want to ask you about, you know, you're talking about, you know, wearing the businesswoman, and, you know, not being weak, and all of, you know, and that's all of these things, you know, and which, you know, we all kind of enter into this arena, even if it's not your own business, like corporate, you know, in male, if you're a female in male dominated areas, you know, or vice versa. You know, I'm a hairdresser by trade. So if a male was in the hairdressing environment, he was gay, you know, so all of these gender roles and assumptions
Yeah.
and stereotypes and all of these things. What is your approach now to doing business and doing it really friggin' well,
Yeah.
but balancing that business, that authenticity and that action, but allowing yourself to be this soft feminine as well,
Yeah.
who's fierce as fuck?
I don't worry anymore
Yeah,
about whether people think I'm too masculine or too feminine.
yeah,
That was preoccupying when I was younger. Well, I can't do this because people think I'm too masculine, and if I do that, they'll think I'm too girl. I just don't care anymore, you know. And if I confuse people because I'm one energy or the other this day, or I'm both at the same time, or whatever it is,
yeah,
that's not my problem.
yeah,
It's not my problem.
yeah,
So it's kind of the same thing as, I think, learning, for me to learn that, to be able to draw a line and still be kind, you
yes,
know, that was a really hard one for me, because kindness is a really major thing for me. I just think there's not enough of it in the world, and we don't give enough a break to each other, or have enough understanding to remove ourselves from a situation and have a look at the other person's perspective. And I've always been very good at that, but I've always been very terrible at protecting my own boundary and letting people sneak underneath it a bit too much. And I think that learning to do that has helped me to learn how to just be myself in every situation and not take on board what other people think of me. You know,
yeah,
I am a really kind person, but I also have a line, a boundary, and it's really firm. It's really firm now. And I will, you know, my compassion goes up to that point. It's not a very, you know, I don't have a lot of what do you call it? I don't have a lot of rules in life, so it's a
yeah,
pretty broad
yeah,
line. But it's just my last, like, it's okay. Once you get to there, that's it. But it's funny how many people resist that when they're not used to you having a boundary, or they're not used to you going, okay, and now that's enough.
yeah,
It took me years to educate other people, family members and things like that, who are so used to just taking that for granted all the time, putting that boundary, and really freaked them out.
yeah.
So, but now they've got it now. They got it. But you have to keep going
Yeah,
until
it's a
they get
learned
it and
behavior, right?
realize,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
it
know
is.
who says that quote, but it's something, and I'll probably butcher it, but it's, it's something like, if you don't instill your own boundaries, everyone else will
Yeah.
instill them
Or
and
you
make them for
teach
you.
people how to treat you, right?
Yeah.
That's how you know, it's a learned behavior, and they will treat you the way you allow them. So you have to teach them.
Yeah.
You have to teach them what's how you will be treated, and then once they get that you can get on with your life. But yeah, it's not easy when you have been doing it for a long time. So start, I don't know who's watching this, but start as young as you can.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so then, you talk about, you not caring about what other people think, and that can be easier said than done. So how did you go about not
It's not.
caring what
Yeah.
people think?
So there's a
It's
difference
just so
between
true.
not caring at all about what
Yes.
people think,
Yeah.
and not caring but understanding how you're going to be perceived, and understanding that you know, is that okay for you? Are you okay with that? Because it may lose you a job, it may lose you an employee, it may lose you a collaboration, it may, you know. So it's not about being flippantly unaware of your surroundings and who you're talking to, and just barreling into every room. And you
Yeah.
still need to be, you know, aware of your surroundings. You still need to learn to read a room.
Yeah.
And but you don't have to. Not everyone. Sorry, my dad's talking to me.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Not everybody deserves all of you all the time. Some people just don't understand you, and it's because they're not quite there yet. Maybe their emotional IQ isn't there, or maybe they just haven't lived enough of life yet to understand where you're coming from. You don't need to share all of yourself with people who aren't going to understand you. you can just chill. You just chill out, do what you came to do, speak in a way that they will understand, you know, what you're trying to do, what the end game is, without, they won't understand the middle or the deeper reasoning behind it. They just want to know the surface bullet points. That's fine. You don't need to educate them on that. You just need to know for yourself. So I think that's the difference, I guess, is you know, unless you don't want to be a part of the world at all, you can't just show up, you know, warts and all, into a room full of anybody all the time. It's just not practical. But you can be who you are all of the time. You just don't have to share it all.
Yes.
And that's the difference.
Absolutely. And that's the gold right there, right? Is you can be all of who you are all the time, but you don't need to share it. Like that is
right.
just a meme right there.
But that's because I manage a lot of really big personalities and lots of different personalities, and so I've had that come up a few times. You know, I was on set talking to a client about, you know, I was going to get a vaginal piercing but decided not to do it, and I'm like, okay, hang on, which client? Right, so that client doesn't know anything about vaginas or piercings or anything like that. And it's probably not a conversation that they understand. So if you're feeling like they're disconnecting from you, it's not the right space for that conversation, right? So if you can read the room, you can see that's making somebody uncomfortable, pull it back. Talk to somebody else about your vaginal piercings. It's fine to talk about, but some people just aren't ready for it, you know? And at the end of the day, all that matters is you got one and you're happy with it. That's it. No one even needs to know about it. So
no, that's exactly.
It's I know that's an extreme version, but that is the natural thing that happens, you know. So
exactly, that's right. And then, you know, just having a conversation and then going, but they don't get me. Why aren't they as invested in this as me? Like,
you can't get upset with people. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, you know, like, well, why aren't they angry? Well, because it's not, that's your priority. They have other everybody's entitled to their own priorities. You know, you can't force things down people's throats. And often the way it's approached, like I love all these conspiracy theories with COVID and stuff. I actually get quite a kick out of it all. And, you know, some of them are quite interesting. And I'm like, oh, you know, maybe I should look into that. But I hate that a lot of these, you know, investigators or conspiracy theorists or whatever they like to term themselves, I'm not sure, the people who are really into this and finding out all about it, assume that the rest of us, because we don't prescribe to the same ideas, are stupid or we haven't researched it. That drives me crazy. And so I think that's, you know, it's all that life is way more nuanced, and so are human beings. And so my biggest advice on that one is read the room.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, I say all the time to my clients, like, to move to a stage where we can hold two truths at the same time without no one being wrong. Like, your truth, my truth can coexist. There is a place for everything. But deeming someone else as stupid, or they're blind, or they're idiots, or they're asleep, or whatever, like,
or brainwashed, or
it's just an assumption that offers no solution, no value.
No.
So it's like, you mentioned working with big personalities, and I had a bit of a scroll through the personalities that you do manage. So how do you work with such big personalities or varying personalities without feeling like you're being swallowed?
I think that's because I'm very clear about who I am. And even in my most confusing times in my life, in my head, you know, I have always known really what my core values are. So I don't have any problem with that. And I am pretty immovable when it gets down to that core level. But the rest of me is kind of fluid and jelly, right? So I'm happy to take in a new idea. I like hearing about people. I'm really fascinated by how people get to why they're doing what they're doing, how they got there, what their backstory is, what their life is. So I like to dig into, when someone comes in with a big personality, there's normally a really good reason. There's normally a really cool story behind it, or sometimes a really tragic story. You don't know what you're going to get. But people with big personalities aren't just born, they're made. That's what I have realized in my life.
Yeah.
And just about everybody that I manage that has, one of those personalities that fills a room, there's always a backstory. And so, when I work with people like that, I want to know what it is, how, and how can we keep using it in the positive and not in the negative, so that I feel like that's my part of my job, is to help them, bring the best of who they are, the best of their personality out for their own benefit, which will then benefit the rest of us, right? Yeah. So, because we need those huge personalities, we need them. They're the people that change the world. So, helping to guide them in the right direction is a privilege, and it's not one that I take lightly. And I really love listening to people's points of view. I find that really interesting. I'm a real people watcher. Go to a restaurant or a bar, or I'll be the one in the corner just casing the whole room. I love watching how people interact and making up stories about, what they might be, who they might be in real life, and how that couple mesh. And that sort of is always a narrative that's running through in my head. I like to know what makes people tick. So, and I know from my own self that there's a lot more to people that meets the eye. So I find all of that really interesting. And I think you have to be to be an agent, you have to find human beings interesting, because otherwise it'd be the worst job in the world.
You couldn't do it, could you?
No, you couldn't. No,
you'd be really bad at your job.
Really bad at your job if you didn't like people. So yeah. So I think that's like rule number one. Yeah. And then and then temperament has always been, luckily for me, my mum was a really calm temperament, and she really taught me how to sort of be calm and strong at the same time, without having to be gross about it or angry about it or mean about it. There's nothing mean in her whole body. And so she was a great role model in that way. So I was very lucky to have that.
I love that, because that is something that I picked up on you, and probably because it's a value that I love, and it's the piece within me that was a real game changer for me, and that's that humility piece. So and I see that in you. You've got this, because a lot of people, if they didn't know you, would assume like you're the CEO of Bella Management. Like, even like most people's heard of Bella Management. Like, I would assume, like, it's
see, I don't think about it like that, but other people do. Like, I was with a girlfriend of mine, Claire, once, and we were at a function, and she said, "Oh, so and so wants to meet you," or something, but she's too scared to come. And I was like, "What? Scared?" It's like, you don't understand. You're, Chelsea Bonner CEO. I was like, no, I'm just Chelsea. I just feel like that's really bizarre that anyone would be afraid to come up and talk to me, or be afraid to come and introduce themselves to me. Like, it's really interesting to me. And I think I opened social media not because I wanted to, like an Instagram account, not because I wanted to, but because the publishers wanted me to open a public account. I had a private account, but they wanted me to open a public account when I wrote the book. And I was a bit like, I don't know about this, but I kept it open because I thought, well, hopefully people can see I'm a human. Maybe my younger talent and anybody who wants to say good day to me will feel like they can, if they can see that I'm just a regular human being who's just really passionate about something. So that's really all it is. It's just that I'm completely obsessed with changing the world. That's it.
And that's beautiful. Like, I love that. And that's, because one of my daughters, she asked me, like, no joke, every other day, she's like, she really wants to be a model. And and has done for many, many years. And I say
I
to
think all
her,
little girls go through that stage, because that's like all my
yeah,
friends' kids, they all just have that stage where they want to be a model. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's this one. It's not going away. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like,
How old is she now?
she's 12.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and she's probably asked me, no joke, since she's probably been about 6 years old.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah.
but she's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
But she's got a beautiful heart. Like, her heart, I could just lick and eat. Like, it's divine. And so I say to her all the time is, but I'm like, you're entering into an industry, you need to be self-confident. You need to
Yeah.
love yourself. You
Yeah.
need to fiercely love yourself. And so I can feel my mother protection, like,
Yeah.
going, I want to encourage you. I really want to encourage you, but I don't want it to eat you
So
alive.
yeah, and it will. And this is
Yeah.
the, that's just the absolute plain facts of it. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
We when I'm signing a model, when any of my agents, we sit down and talk to them, and if they do not have the internal fortitude and emotional intelligence to understand this business and have some chance of being able to separate out what they do for work and who they are as people, we just can't represent them, because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
This business is rough. Any creative industry, people pick on the modeling industry, but it's not just a model. If you're an artist, if you're a musician, if you're a dancer, if you're anything to do with the creative arts, is incredibly difficult, because it involves your ego, your mind, who you are goes into your work. And to be able to separate those two things and not take it personally is very difficult. So if you don't have that, this industry will not teach you it, and in fact will destroy any bits of it that you have. So it is not an industry for everybody. It just isn't. And it doesn't even matter how beautiful you are or photogenic you are, or none of that matters if you don't have that, whatever it is, to be able to keep those two things separate. It will eat you alive. So, and sometimes it's a quick, that you get chomped on quickly, and other times it takes years and years of nibbles, and then you realize there's nothing left. And I've seen both things happen very many times. And that's one of the biggest things that I talk about to my young talent, especially the ones that are getting really big success. When Robin first started taking off overseas and things like that, is you really have to find things that ground yourself. Go and work at the, give you time at the dog shelter, or go and make food for the homeless. Keep grounded. Make sure you always know what's real and what is not, because this business can spin all of that out of control. So yeah, it's hard. And then, there's a lot of agents that are not anything like me. Most are not anything like me. And so they will encourage that insanity, because they don't care if you burn out or not. They just don't care. They will have their time, make their money, get their things. And if you have a nervous breakdown at the end of it, they don't care. So you have to be really careful who you're partnering with to this journey, because it's huge. It's a big decision. And a lot of people will flash the golden carrot in front of you, but they really don't care if you're alive at the end of it, after you've reach for it. They don't care if you fall flat on your face or you grab it. They will just move on to the next person. And I don't do that. I never have. I've had models on my books for years and years and years who just couldn't get a job, maybe because they were mixed race and curve, which was considered like too crazy for life. But every other agent that I know would have culled those models, which is what they call it, culling. As soon as they 6 to 12 months weren't making any money for them, they would have been culled off the board. I've hung on to and worked with models for years and years, like 5-10 years, who were considered too different for the market, who are now killing it. And I love that. I absolutely love that. So it is really a partnership. And I wish more people would look at it that way. But unfortunately, it is a bit of it's a cutthroat world out there, but not just in every industry. It's all the same. Business the business world, you're dealing with a lot of CEOs who are sociopaths and psychopaths, and that's the reason they're so good at their jobs, is because they literally do not care about other people.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah.
And that is how they get there.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're dealing with 80% like that, and probably 20% like me, you know. So yeah, it can be a dangerous game. So anyone watching this think about getting into the modeling industry, just be aware of that, please. And also know that, and for your daughter as well, we need advocates in every area of creative life. We need more magazine editors, we need more television producers, we need more photographers, female photographers, we need, you know, we need more women in every single part of the fashion and media world, not just as the models. You know, we need partners who are on the inside helping us. So yeah, so if you want to do something for the industry, there's so many avenues for that. There's so many different ways you can do it.
Yeah, there is. And what just come to mind then, you know, because I had that thought as you were talking is, you know, and that's, I think it's really important to understand how every element, every piece to this piece of art works as well, you know. So I think it's just whatever job you do, understanding all the other parts,
that's right,
I think makes you even better. And that goes back to what we were talking about before we even started. You know, we're talking about how you guys and how your talent has had to pivot throughout COVID. And perhaps, you know, these home studios that are being set up, that gives us access to understanding all those moving parts, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's been a really good learning curve for a lot of the models themselves, because although they know exactly what goes on set every day, they don't have to create it themselves, because there's different people that do all those different things. And even, you know, stylists and photographers and whatever, they've got crew, they've got people who set up the lights, they've got people who do this, they've got people who do that. But when you're shooting at home, you have to do all of it yourself. So yeah, it's been a real eye-opener, I think, for a lot of the talent to see how much work actually goes in before they even walk on set. So I think that's been kind of cool for them to see, you know, new appreciation on every level of what each of us bring to the table separately to together create something amazing, including the models. You know, I mean, photographers who shoot people, not being able to shoot people, that was incredibly difficult, you know. But they as a lot of them swung on to shooting on FaceTime, shooting by drone. I mean, we just saw the most incredible, innovative ideas come through COVID, and some of them were shit. But, you know, some of them were awesome, and I hope that they hang around, you know, after. I hope they weren't just, because I think especially drone shooting, I think that, you know, Pretty Little Things did the coolest drone shoot with a couple of our models, and I hope they keep doing those like integrating those throughout, because I think that, you know, that was really cool and really awesome, that bird's eye view of everything that's going on. Because as a customer, you don't often get to see that bird's eye view. We get to see it because we're on set, so we get to but so I think that's really cool. I hope they keep that stuff. So
it is cool. And all the, like, you know, and that's always been a thing, right, is like people are intrigued by behind the scenes, you know, what happens, and that's the drones, and it's just a different gaze, isn't it? It's just a different avenue for that to happen, which is really cool. Where do you see this industry going? Like, we're seeing this big movement for influencers to be raw and authentic and all of these beautiful things. We're also seeing, you know, filters and still these edited versions of ourselves becoming like literally like a touch of a button away, so we can all edit ourselves. Where do you see it going?
Oh, I kind of wish I had a crystal ball, and I'm glad I don't, because I'm terrified of what I might see. I never thought, I mean, I've worked in this business for a long time, so I knew before the general public had access to photoshopping and things like that, we did, you know, in our industry, we had access to all of that. So I was already getting very uncomfortable with that side of things. I don't mind, you know, if you're removing a pimple that's not normally there, or, you know, stray hairs or something like that. that all that is fine, but it's just such another level now where people actually look like cartoon characters, and every single photo that they put up is like an airbrushed version of themselves, and then they've got to go out into real life, and that has got to really fuck with your head, like, as a human being. I really worry. I've got friends who aren't even in the business who are constantly posting photos of themselves with filters and things on, and they don't look anything like that in real life. And it really worries, like, it really scares me. And then they'll get on and say, oh, I went on a date and he didn't even turn up, or he didn't even like me, he stayed for 5 minutes. I'm like, well,
yeah.
I mean, these are the photos that you're using on your dating profile.
Yeah.
He has literally turned up to meet a different looking person altogether.
Yeah.
And as much as you say it shouldn't be about looks, well, it is and it isn't, because some people are attracted to blonde, some people are attracted to, black hair, some people are attracted to booties, some people are attracted to boobs. Like, everybody's got something that they're attracted to, right? So that initial stage of attraction is always based on looks. You can't avoid that, So they might think you're wearing a cool outfit. I don't know, but it's always about looks initially. That's the spark. The rest of it comes later, one would hope. But there's always that initial spark of attraction that comes from that person and how they put themselves together. And that worries me. And I started to see more and more and more of that. Well, I turned up or this guy, that I met. I see it on Facebook groups and things all the time, and it just really stresses me out. It's like, well, but you don't look like you're not presenting as yourself. So it's really freaking confusing to turn up and someone's meeting, if you're constantly altering your nose and your eyes and all of that sort of stuff, then I don't know. I really don't know, mate. I wish I had the answer for you. All I can do is keep doing what I do, and hopefully, that pushes back a little bit. Hopefully people find us, they can follow my models who do not do that to themselves, and gets a little bit of, real life into their feeds. But other than that, it's like a wild beast that's been let go, and I really don't know what to do about it. I mean, have you got any ideas? I mean, other than shut them down, I really don't know.
Yeah, for me, like, and as you just said, like, bring in realness.
Yeah.
And just, for sure, if you want to bring in use a filter or whatever, but for me, it's about going, okay, but this is how I really look, and this is how I really, want to say or speak, and I say for myself, and I say to my girls as well, is like to follow a range of people, like a diverse amount of people. I think is really important, and being aware, like, when it's all performative.
I've got
it's all edited.
Filters for fun and filters for performance, or for a bit of a laugh. No issue with that at all. But when you cannot post a photograph of yourself without photoshopping, that is a real problem. That is a real problem, and you're causing yourself a lot of issues. So you really need to pull back on that. Just take a break altogether. Just step away and go back to it later. There's same theory as when you go from drinking a glass of wine when you finish work to finishing a bottle. That's probably when you should look at stopping.
Yes.
Don't open the second bottle.
Exactly. Walk away from
walk away. Have a dry week.
Exactly. Which I'm having a dry month, just
FYI.
Good on you. Yes, I know it's been a very long time. So yes, I'm doing very well.
I accidentally had a dry year, nearly completely dry. When COVID happened around this time last year, I just thought, I need to be at the top of my game here. I don't want to get caught in this, afternoon drink cycle, which is so easy. So I just decided not to drink through COVID, and then it's just sort of hung around. I don't know. I've had a few drinks here and there, but I don't know. It's saying that I'll probably go
more
drink a bottle of vodka on Friday night.
We're seeing more people like go, no, not drinking, where before it was like, well, no, have one, go on, have one, where I think a lot of people now are like, meh, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah. People don't press you as much to have a drink now as they used to.
Yeah.
It's funny, and like, no, really, you can't just have one. Like, no, I don't want one. Just like, I said no, thanks. People don't do that to you so much anymore. It used to be. I remember, because I've always done little dry spells throughout my life, and I remember, about 10 years ago I did one, and almost everywhere I went, I'm like, just one. I'm like, I don't want to drink.
Yes,
like,
exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I was reading a meme this morning saying, similar thing is like, a guy will go up and go, can I get you a drink? No, I don't want one. Oh, no, but have one. I'll just get you one. And then he goes to the bar and brings you back a drink. And then all of a sudden you're the bitch because
yep.
you didn't.
I mean, how many times has that happened? Or you tell them not to buy you a drink and they buy you one anyway, and then they hang around and they're like, but I bought you a drink. I can buy my own freaking drinks. Like, I told you not to buy me a drink. What is this? I just really don't understand that at all. So I've been caught out with that a few times. It's still a weird thing, especially in the younger group. For some reason, they think that you owe them something if they buy you a drink.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know where that's going, but that's weird.
It is funny. It is just all these little nuances that just creep up and have their way. But just before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question, and that is, what is turning you on right now?
Laughter at the moment. Like, just, I don't know, I'm on a real thing at the moment. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm just really enjoying laughing right now. I think last year was so serious that anyone that makes me laugh is turning me on right now. So last year sucked. So it was ass of a year. And so, anything that makes me laugh, anyone that makes me laugh I'm all about that at the moment. So,
Yeah, it was. And that's just, exactly. Last year was a big year.
Big year.
It was a big change. Where, see, for me, the year before was just horrible. So last year I was
felt
like,
a bit easier.
It felt easier. I actually felt like I had the year off a little bit. And as I was saying to you before we went live, it didn't affect my business. Business actually picked up. I got busier and all of these things. And I didn't have to run around after the kids all the time. So all of a sudden I was like, wow, I just felt like my whole world opened up.
That's cool.
So,
I
think
some people did feel that. I mean, as far as, I knew if we could hibernate the business, we'd be fine on the other end of it. I just didn't know how long that was going to go for. But I moved house. This is my last year, 2020. In February, my house flooded and the insurance company threw me out of the house. So I moved into a temporary accommodation in the city near my new offices that we just moved into. And then COVID hit. So my house is still not being fixed. So I'm still in a rental. Then my niece was diagnosed with cancer, my little 9-month-old niece. Then they finally diagnosed me. And the only reason I'm okay with that, obviously, is because she's doing well on the chemo and things are going well. Thank God, but it was terrifying. Then after 10 years of being told I have fibromyalgia, they finally diagnosed me with something that is not fibromyalgia. And so I found out I've got an incurable disease now, that's the finger splints. So all my joints all over my body just dislocate randomly. It's called EDS. So I'm doing a trial program to see if they can fix the ligaments and tendons in my body with this PRP therapy. So it's just like, so it was just like, so my house was gone. My little niece was sick. I had to go and have spinal surgery and everything with this bloody disease. And so on top of COVID, it was a big year. So
a massive year.
So that is why humor is turning me on right now.
Absolutely. Have you ever done laughter yoga?
Yes. I did that years ago. God, I used to go into so many different things, and God, I accidentally got caught on a friend of mine sent me on a tantric
Yeah.
tantric sex massage weekend. I thought I was going for a remedial massage
Oh,
weekend.
that's it.
And
And this is
I wrote about it in the book. It's like everyone's like, I can't believe you put that in. I was like, it's just the funniest story. So anyway, yeah. But I needed it. It was really good for my body image at that age. I was, like 22 or something. But yeah, that was confronting the velvet and satin vagina. But hey, so I've done some weird things in my life, but it's all been good learning, all of it. So yeah.
absolutely.
But
And
laughter is the best. The
laughter's
best thing.
yeah, absolutely. And that's, and I think, you were saying before is, people, thinking that they get to have this amazing life without these trials and tribulations, but, you can't avoid life, and so that's why laughter and humor is so important.
You always have to be able to take the mickey out of yourself and your circumstances.
Yeah.
You just won't get out of it alive otherwise. You just have to have a sense of humor. It's the best thing. It's the thing that will carry you through every single thing that happens to you in your life.
Everything.
So,
absolutely. I totally agree. Chelsea, thank you so much for being
thanks
on
for
the
having
show
me
today. It's just been
good.
so lovely to hang out with you, and I love everything that you stand for and everything
and you too
that you're doing. It's you're a true warrior, and I admire your humility, your courage, and just how you show up in your approach to life and doing what you're doing is really amazing. So thank you so much. I'm going to put all of your details in the show notes, and for everybody watching, go check out Chelsea's work, read her book, be a part of her movement, because it is one of the most amazing movements that we're seeing, and so vital in today's day and age. So thank you to everybody watching, and
thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Bye,
Talk to you soon.
everybody.